Hello and welcome to the Long Talk. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind Driving More, and welcome to New Zealand Sports Radio. And today I have an absolute treat. We have Ben Kennings from Surfing New Zealand. How are you doing, sir?
Good, thank you, Paul. How are you today?
Yes, very good. It's a bit grey outside, but hey, hopefully I'll get out for my walk. But stay within my bubble. Keep your distance, folks. Social distancing. And obviously that's been a big issue for you guys because you've not been allowed to surf. How's that been impacting the community?
Yeah, it's been a challenge. So that first week of the lockdown, it was sort of a little bit of a grey area, and some people surfed. Unfortunately, not me. Until they come out with that rule number 70, which stopped anyone from going in the water. So the last 3 weeks have been a challenge, and as many would have seen in the media, there's been a few surfers that have broken those rules and brought it to the attention of everyone. But hopefully, under level 3, perhaps by 4 o'clock this afternoon, if it gets announced, we'll be able to surf by Thursday. If not, when level 3 comes, we'll be able to surf. And I think it'll be one of the few sports that will be able to actually get out there and do something.
Yeah, yourselves and mountain biking apparently as well. So anyway, but that's an aside. So I've got someone lined up to talk about mountain biking later in the week. So folks, don't forget to subscribe and like and all that kind of stuff, so you don't miss out on any of those interviews. But how did you get into surfing? How did you get your feet wet?
I come from a surfing family, so grew up at the beach. My dad got me into surfing before the age of 5, and I've been out and I've surfed ever since. So grew up at Whangamata, that's where I'm based at the moment. Spent a lot of time in Hamilton and also at Raglan and traveling the world surfing. But yeah, basically born into it and just love it. So just the surfing family. All my brothers surf, my wife surfs, now my kids surf as well.
And as you just heard there, folks, age of 5. So if you have any young kids that want to get into surfing, doesn't matter how old they are, as long as you can sort of, I guess, stand, you can have a go, is it?
Yeah, pretty much. So, I mean, you do want to have a certain amount of ability in the water. So you need to be able to tread water. You need to be able to swim. My dad always said, if you can't swim to go and get your board, then you're not coming out with us. So we learned to swim, but swim at a really young age. That's the main thing. But you are attached to your board, so it's not as bad as what everyone thinks. And if you go to a proper surf school, you can get some really good lessons, and they're amazing at getting you up on your feet and getting you riding waves.
Cool. So you said you've traveled the world surfing. Was as a professional surfer or as a teacher? How far did you go?
Yeah, a little bit of both. So competed for New Zealand as a junior, and I've travelled through Indonesia and France and Europe competing, and then also just travelling around like through the Pacific, Tahiti, Fiji, Samoa, through the Americas, a little bit of Europe, Australia, Indonesia. So surfers are very well-travelled people. They want to get out of New Zealand like everyone does, but your board's under your arm and you're going to somewhere along the coast. So plenty of surf spots around the world to visit and explore.
And somewhere with not too cold water, if at all possible as well. So how did you move into the kind of the administration or the running the sports side of things?
Yeah, so I mean, I was always really interested in competition. I competed since before my teens. And I always loved surfing, not just as a lifestyle and as a recreation, but as a sport. So that side interests me. As I went through high school and into tertiary education, I got the opportunity to be the athletes rep for Surfing New Zealand. So I was on their board and worked through that for a few years. And then as our organisation grew, I became, or a place became available, and I applied and got the job to be comms and event manager. So that's where I started.
And you mentioned there about the lifestyle and competing. I mean, you see plenty of surf movies where the kind of the hippie kind of guy enters a sports competition. It does really, really well. Then someone drags his cable, and he becomes philosophical about it. And because it's not about the competition. It's about the lifestyle. It's about the waves. How does surfing kind of marry that kind of chilled out surfer dude image plus the highly competitive world of high performance sport?
Yeah, I think it's a challenge. So first and foremost, everyone surfs for the fun of it and to enjoy it. So you have that freedom side of it. That's where you always start. That's where you always finish. But those that want to take their surfing further can compete, and we have a competition pathway right from juniors through to seniors. So people choose to do that to challenge themselves against others as well. And now that we're an Olympic sport, we get to go to the highest echelon and really, test ourselves against the best around the world. So it's a challenge. As a sport, we definitely focus on the competitive side of it, and we're now looking to see how we can branch out a little bit more and make sure that we represent all the recreational surfers as well.
And there are, and this, I'll be honest, my knowledge of surfing is pretty minimal, but you have sort of long boards and short boards. When you say going to the Olympics, that's all the fancy twisting around in the big waves with the shorter boards, not the long board kind of walking forwards and backwards and side of things.
Not bad knowledge. Yep, definitely. Olympics is the short boards. So a little bit like, say, cycling, for example, you have a whole lot of disciplines. So surfing, you have the short board, which is made at the Olympics. You have longboard surfing, where surfing originated. You have kneeboarding as well. We just held the World Kneeboard Champs in Dunedin at the start of March. You have bodyboarding, so lying down on your stomach, and stand-up paddleboarding, which has become very popular in the last 10 years. And then more recently, you've got foil boards, a little bit similar to the America's Cup, where the boards actually aren't on the water, they're on a foil. So that's becoming quite popular as well. But shortboarding is where the majority of surfers are. Approximately about 60 to 65% of the surfing community are on shortboards.
And the foiling one, you need a kite, don't you, to get the power to get yourself up?
No, so you can have the kite, or you can have a stand-up paddleboard and paddle in. Or you can have just a standard surfboard, or slightly different, modified. But once you're up, the wave picks you up, and you can ride a lot of different waves. So you can ride big waves on a foil, but you can also ride some really small, mushy waves, and actually opens up the ocean a lot more for people who want to give that a go. It's a pretty amazing thing to see.
Wow, and that's already reached a competitive level, or is it still?
Not quite. Yeah, there's a couple of sort of get-togethers more so where they're giving it a go, and one down in Gisborne is the main one. But before long, I think it will be a discipline that they'll compete in, and pretty spectacular. A lot of the Hawaiians do it. They actually do a lot of open ocean foiling, where they foil between two islands and just catch sort of big wind swells and open ocean waves, and they can go for hundreds of meters. Really spectacular.
Wow! Now there's a sport that's designed for drone footage.
Exactly.
following them along. Wow. And sorry, and is paddleboarding a competitive sport, or is that just that?
Yes. Yep. So we have there's a world tour for stand-up paddleboarding, and there's also the World Stand-Up Paddleboarding Championships run by the International Surfing Association. So New Zealand sends a team to that event every year, and we've got several medals in that, predominantly from the paddling disciplines rather than the surfing. But we have a lot of really good stand-up paddleboarders in New Zealand.
Wow. Okay. I didn't realize. You've opened my eyes as to how many different disciplines there are in all of that. That's amazing. So yeah, that sounds like there's about five teams that you put together. So how is New Zealand, Surfing New Zealand, get right around, structured in that part of it? You say, do you have teams that are traveling around the world all the time, or do people have to? Is it mainly kind of individuals rather than a team sport?
Yeah, so a bit of both. So the World Surf League is the professional league, and that's where our top surfers, Paige Harrop, Ricardo Christie, Billy Stearman, Ella Williams, Elliot Pairata Reid, they travel around the world pretty much 9 months a year or more by themselves or with friends, and they compete at a professional level. And then as an organisation, we send away New Zealand teams, so a junior team, New Zealand Open team to the World Surfing Games. That's the Olympic qualifiers. Stand-up paddleboard World Championships as well, and then the longboard World Championships. So they're the teams that we send away. Cool.
Now, talking about pro surfing, you had the biggest event in New Zealand for a long time, all lined up, the Piha Pro. And how much work went into, and as you say, you're part of the events group. How much work did you guys have to put into to pull that together?
Yeah, so we were part of the group, but it was run by the Live Event Experience through Carl Budge and Chris Simpson. They were the two main drivers of the event. So we worked alongside them, and it was a huge amount of work. I mean, Carl had worked on that for in excess of 3 years, I think, to get it going. And everything was there. Like the whole place was perfectly set up, and it was canned, I think, 24 hours before we were going to start the first event, or the junior event of that. So your massive disappointment. Like all the junior athletes were there. A few of the senior athletes had already come over from Australia. It was going to be pretty spectacular. We're going to have Kelly Slater here, Carissa Moore, and have that whipped out from underneath you is horrifying. But it was
because you were due to go. So it was due to happen days before we went into, or the weekend before lockdown, wasn't it? I think. Yes.
So it was going to start the 14th of March, and that was the junior event. And then we had the New Zealand trials on the 15th, start on the 16th, and the event got canned on the 13th, Friday the 13th. Unlucky for some, proved super unlucky for us. And yeah, we all rolled into Piha, had a meeting with the guys. Chris Simpson, he's like, unfortunately, we've had to pull the pin. And it kind of seemed drastic at that point in time. Like there weren't many other international events that had been canned, but within the space of 12 or 24 hours, I think the Formula One event in Melbourne had been cancelled, and then a few of the major tennis events tournaments had been cancelled, and it just snowballed from there, and it became quite a pivotal point for, I think, international sporting events. Everything just went by the wayside.
Yeah, and you made the right call, or they made the right call at that side. Absolutely. Now, for those of you who are interested, I mean, the Piha Pro, this wasn't a one-off thing. This was part of it. I think it 3 years that it's booked in for. Yeah,
3 year. It's a 3 year license, and I think last week was officially cancelled for 2020. But they're adamant they're going to be back in 2021 and starting to work with the World Surf League and the major partners such as Major Events and also ATEED in Auckland as well to get that back up and running. So fingers crossed we'll be there come March next year.
So yeah, so folks, yeah, you've missed that this year, but look, don't worry, it's coming back. Now, I've only been to Piha once, but it's a one road in, one road out. Wow, it's going to be it's going to be a bit it's going to be jammed, isn't it, when that happens?
Yeah, it is. It's a small little place, and we've had a couple of events there before where we've packed it out. So this time around, the guys had an awesome traffic management plan that actually calculated how many cars could get in there safely. And still allowing emergency services to operate in that. So there was a parking quota that everyone had to go and purchase parking tickets. That was the main thing. And they were starting to sell out. I think the last 3 days of the event had sold out. And just through that week, we're starting to sell out as well. So it was one of the biggest challenges for the event being at Piha. And I don't think the World Surf League hadn't really sort of encountered something like that before. So yeah, it was an interesting little hurdle to climb.
Oh, but you say 3 years getting it all set up. It was from everything I've heard, the organisation was all top notch and was all looking good. It's a shame that. So how many? So obviously with the Olympics being delayed, how many competitors had you got qualified for the Olympics, or was qualifying still going?
Qualifying was still going, but we had two provisional qualifiers. So that was Billy Stearman and Ella Williams. So they qualified via being the top surfers from Oceania in 2019 at the World Surfing Games. And then our 2020 World Surfing Games was supposed to be next month in El Salvador. So clearly that's been postponed. They're hopeful they'll get it up and running at the end of the year. If not, they'll try again early 2021. And that's when we have a chance to get another two athletes. So maximum we can get is 2 males, 2 females. At the moment, we've just got one of each.
Right. Now, I know that with this being a new sport, it's surfing isn't as centered around the Olympics in the same way that, say, rowing or volleyball or these sort of sports are. And I know there are people there that have put their lives on hold for 4 years for an event, and then are like, well, can I afford to spend another year out before going in? Are your contestants like in that kind of situation, or are they more or is it more this is what they do full time anyway? And it's annoyance. It's a complication, it being delayed by a year, but it's not kind of, they'll still be competing next year.
Yeah, I think it's an annoyance, especially, I guess to be that new kid on the block and to get those athletes qualified. And we thought it was going to be such a huge year alongside the Piha Pro. We thought it was going to be huge, and now it's bumped out. I'd actually only just got back from Japan on the day the Piha Pro was cancelled or postponed at that point. And we'd been over there having a look at our accommodation, all the facilities, meeting all the special event managers for surfing and things like that. So to come back and have that just whipped out as well, it was a kind of a double blow. But for our surfers, they compete year round. Like you say, they're professional athletes, very much like tennis and golf. They're traveling the world, competing, and at the moment, the World Surf League and the World Championship is definitely the pinnacle. And it'll take a while for surfing to be involved in the Olympics and to have that prestige. I think we're going to have the top surfers at the Olympics in Japan anyway, and it's going to be a pretty huge day for the sport. And I think it provides us a lot of opportunities. But at the moment, our surfers, well, they're at home probably for the majority of this year, but they'll be competing every other month of the year, this year and next year as well, regardless of the Olympics.
Yeah, so in a bit like in tennis and golf, let's watch. You rank how good a person was by how many majors or any grand slams they won, not by how many Olympics they won. Yep. You're saying for a while it's still going to be the World Championships that'll be, and it will take time for the Olympics to unseat the World Championships as being the kind of the pinnacle of the sport. Yeah,
I think so. We've discussed it quite a lot over the last 3 years since surfing qualified for the Olympics, and it's it may take a generation of surfers growing up with the sport being in the Olympics and them seeing that as one of the pinnacles. And I don't know if it'll ever supersede the World Surf League and that World Championship, but it certainly can get up alongside it.
Now, one of the reasons that rugby wanted to get sevens into the Olympics was around the funding side of things. So has it helped you with funding over the last sort of 3 years, that you get access to funding is much more readily available?
Definitely, yeah, definitely. So we've had some really good support. Paige Harrod's been with High Performance Sport New Zealand for 2 years to support her campaigns on the World Surf League and also to qualify for the Olympics. We've also had support through the Olympic Solidarity Fund, through the IOC and the NZOC. So that's allowed a lot of our athletes to come into training camps that we wouldn't otherwise been able to have run. So really starting to see some benefits there. But there's probably a few other bits to it. I think it's around Surfing New Zealand as an organisation taking that opportunity and having more mainstream profile. The schools also see surfing now as more of a legitimate sport, so you're seeing more school surfing teams pop up, and that's a real positive as well through the schools. So sport's starting to be seen in a different light. So apart from the direct funding, I think there's a lot of indirect opportunities as well.
And when the actual Olympics comes around, you obviously get the exposure of it being on TV and radio as well. So there'll also be the exposure piece once the Olympics gets here. So did you have a plan around how to maximize the exposure during the Olympics?
Yeah, we're probably a little bit behind on it, but we're working on some opportunities and trying to figure out how we can leverage that opportunity or leverage the Olympics. How we can bring some major funders into our organisation and support our athletes. I think that's going to be the biggest thing. But yeah, there's going to be heaps of profile that comes out of it, and like I say, it's just up to us to actually grab that by the horns and make the most of it.
So, what kind of domestic events do you guys run then? What's available for the domestic surfers to compete in?
Yeah, so we start off with the primary school championships. So it's a one-off event in New Zealand. We have the scholastic championships as well, secondary schools. We have a junior series, so that's under 14, under 16, and under 18. So there's 8 events around the country that the juniors can compete in. And then we have a domestic series for the shortboard competition. So there's 6 events in that, that all the domestic-based surfers can travel around and compete, get a national ranking, and get towards that overall series championship. For us, though, the national championships usually held in January. That's the pinnacle event for us. It's been going since 1963, and that's the one title that everyone wants to win in New Zealand.
And being in January, luckily you managed to get it to happen. I guess is surfing seen as being a summer sport, or is it an all year round sport as far as your events and go?
Yeah, so yes, it's a summer sport, and I'd say participation levels would probably double over summer. But through winter, there's still a heck load of surfers out there. Just a little bit colder, but with technology, the suits that you can wear now are a lot warmer. You've got booties, you can have a helmet, gloves if you need to. Sometimes in the South Island. For us as an organisation, we like to run our events over the summer months, or maybe spring into summer and a little bit of autumn, purely because no one really wants to go to the beach to watch something if it's cold and raining and windy. So we focus our attention on the summer months, and then a lot of people free surf, or they go overseas, like you suggested earlier, to warmer waters and take a trip to Indonesia or throughout the Pacific.
Okay, so you've been from an impact on sport point of view, you guys with COVID-19. Obviously, you've lost your big event, but the timing wise, you've managed to get your domestic stuff out of the way, and this would normally be your coming into the quiet time of year for you.
Yeah, so we had to postpone 5 events from mid-March through to start of May. Next week, I think we've got 2 more events that we would have had. So it did impact us there, which was a real concern, but we're trying to reschedule those for the back half of the year. But yes, certainly over that winter period, that 6 months, sort of May through to mid-September, we're very much into planning. We're reporting, then planning for the new season, and really getting all the paperwork in place so we can get out on the road and deliver initiatives to the surfing community.
All in your combis. Actually, sorry, I've said that flippantly. Do you all have little camper vans to take to the beach?
Some people have camper vans, and it's certainly something that we notice is on the increase. So a lot of families will have camper vans, and they'll take their kids away, and they'll all park up and be able to get out of the sun, I guess, is one of the key things at events. Just having a little bit of a base at the beach, that you're a little bit more comfortable rather than just sitting in the sun from 8 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon and getting baked. So yes, proliferation of motor camps is real in our sport as well.
There you go. Yeah, it's also you got something to get changed to things. Total sidetrack, but I like road cycling, and if you're going to go watch a road cycling, it's great to have a camper van, because you're in the middle of nowhere watching it, and you can make yourself a cup of tea, and you got a toilet, which is kind of handy as well. So being able to make a cup of tea on some of the more remote beaches, I think would be definitely a useful thing.
Absolutely.
So how do you also mentioned people? You're in schools and stuff. How do people find out where there are surf schools and how they can actually get involved? So
our website is surfingnz.co.nz. That has all the clubs around the country listed. So we have about 30 affiliated board rider clubs that you can become a part of. We also have about 30 accredited surf schools. So these guys have qualified through an international standard. They're the ones that can teach you to get up on your board, teach you all the right safety and the water safety, which is super important for us, and get you going as quick as possible. If you're into it, then you move on to the clubs, and there's clubs all over the place, and they have learn to surf initiatives, they have club nights, they have community events. So that's kind of the basics of it. Other than that, we've got so much coastline that if you really want to give it a go yourself, you can just go and grab a board and jump out in the water. Yeah, and it's I believe it's probably about 20 years ago, but I did have one lesson in Biarritz once, and yes, you can get up on a board in one lesson, folks. You can stand up and actually and ride a small wave in, and you can throw your hands up in the air and go, yeah, I did it. You're not going to look like was it Keanu Reeves from Point Break, but hey, you're still going to stand up, which is the big thing. Yep, totally. The how much is that whole
sort of surfing in movies? Do you find that's a big way as to how people sort of learn about it and get into it, or is that kind of a bit old hat now? I'm just showing my age with my grey beard.
Yes, some of it's a little bit corny, but we've noticed over the years some of the, like when Blue Crush came out, which is a female surfing movie, the uptake of female surfers at that point in time was significant. It does bring it to the forefront of people's minds, and they want to give it a go. So there's been some classics throughout the years, and it certainly helps. I guess it just puts surfing in front of people that may otherwise not have been interested or even thought about it. I guess New Zealand being so close to the coast all the time, you do have more opportunity to go to the beach and have a look, and it may you may see it. But if you took somewhere, for example, like central or the middle of America or something like that, those people will never go to a beach. So it's an interesting little part of it.
Okay, so lockdown recommendations for surfing films, because everyone's here now. Everyone's trying to find more content to watch.
Yeah, I think Sky Sport have Big Wednesday on at the moment, so there's one. Netflix has some great movies, some surfing documentaries and some surfing movies. Bethany Hamilton, the girl that got her arm bitten off by a shark in Hawaii, she's got a new movie that came out, which is really awesome. I like a lot of the old ones that you can get, like the Endless Summer and Endless Summer 2 are really good to watch. Then if you're on YouTube, you can just search up anything. I mean, there's so much surfing content. My girls watch Jamie O'Brien vlogs all the time. So he's a Hawaiian surfer, puts out a blog every other week or something. So they're really popular. There's heaps of footage everywhere.
So you go, folks. That's how you can fill your lockdown time with that. I know your kids are about to jump on and grab all the bandwidth for their schooling, so I'm trying to wrap this one up. But any other sort of final things you'd like to tell the people about surfing in New Zealand, apart from just get involved and have a go? Yeah,
I guess just I think the ocean is pretty cool in New Zealand. It's an awesome place to be for your physical well-being as well as your mental well-being. Getting in the ocean is so awesome, just to be at one with nature. I think that's one of the main things, and just the physical. You don't need to be super physically fit to do surfing or to be a surfer, but if you go surfing, you realize how much energy it takes and how good it is for your body. So it's really worth something that's really worth trying. Give it a go. Check us out on social media if you can, at Surfing NZ across all the platforms. They have all sorts of content and funny things that people can check up on.
Actually, one of the things that's obviously big at the moment is the reduction of it's about in the environment and the sea is reduction of single-use plastics. I know in the UK you've there's I guess it's surfers against sewage or something like that as well, and all that sort of things. How much do you get involved in the environmental side of keeping our beaches clean and having clean water?
Certainly more and more. With our network of board riders clubs, they do beach cleanups, and with our events, we really make sure that we're reducing plastic and single-use plastics wherever we can. Make sure we're doing a lot of recycling and things. Some really good organisations, similar to Surfers Against Sewage in the UK. Sustainable Coastlines is really good. Surf Break Protection Society does a lot to protect all the surf breaks around New Zealand from development and marine, all the mussel farms and that, I think, can stop the surf from coming into breaks. So they do an awesome job. And there's several other ones as well. So it just becomes more and more prevalent as time goes on to make sure that we protect the ocean, because that is our field. That's our four lines, is the whole ocean. And
I know that in the UK that I think some places around Plymouth and stuff have put in either sunk old ships or put concrete things down to create a surf. Do we have any of those in New Zealand?
We did have one at Mount Maunganui, and it wasn't that successful. So they've worked pretty hard on them around the world, and none of them have been ultimately successful. But what we're getting now is actual wave pools. So people are building wave pools in the middle of nowhere, or some in California that Kelly Slater built was an amazing wave pool. Now there's one in Melbourne next to the airport, and these pools are starting to become a lot more popular. And we talked a little bit about Central America or the middle of the United States. If those wave pools start popping up in all sorts of inland areas, then going to see the sport grow more and more. So that's something to look out for in the future, just with that technology.
So when you talk about wave pools, you're seeing these pop-up ones they put in the middle of malls and stuff, which where you can do a bit of bodyboarding. Are these? Are you talking about sort of that way you've got a molded wave with water running over it, or are you talking about a full-size swimming pool with a kind of wave machine?
Yeah, so those are stationary waves, and they're on like cruise liners and things like that. But these wave pools are like the size of 4 rugby fields kind of thing, and they have a wave machine that pushes the wave out, and you can catch it. And I think like Kelly Slater's one is actually 750 meters long, his wave branch, which is pretty amazing. So there's several different technologies on how to make the wave. The one in Melbourne's pretty cool. A lot of guys from New Zealand have gone over already to test it out and have a go on that. So I think there's a few that want to see those in New Zealand as well. The guys in Christchurch, they've had a feasibility study done, and I think they're working with the North Canterbury Council in terms of property and where they can put one. So I think there'll be a race for a wave pool in New Zealand in not too distant future.
Wow, maybe it will become a centre a bit like the velodrome in Cambridge for cycling.
Yeah,
so yeah. Well, cool. That's been an absolutely fascinating chat with you, Ben. Thank you so much for your time. Everyone, don't forget to like the page or subscribe to the podcast if that's how you're listening to us. Other long talks I've got coming up. I'm talking with Bowls New Zealand. I've also got Mike Rogers, the Bay of Plenty Rugby CEO, and I'm talking to Volleyball New Zealand as well. So lots of interesting long talk interviews coming up as well. And thank you very much for your support and for following the channel.